You got it? Hey, Cameron, just doing a quick sound check, making sure we can hear you. Yeah, we can. Oh, yeah. Is this for the correct? Is this for the main beat, correct? This is just for the 5. Oh. And I can remember, did we do a resolution?
No, remember we met at City Hall?
Without you, we're due a
PFA
You're going to be in better
dash 24 dash.
No, I think this is adopting the resolution.
This is all one.
Oh, goodness. Well, it's the fun part.
Hello, can anybody hear me? Hello?
We can hear you now. Yeah, we had something to sort on our end, so it looks like we can hear. We got you good now.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great.
This meeting is open. It's currently 5:03, and we have a full house panel-wise with the city manager called a roll.
You can sign more.
Yes,
You are the secretary.
that's right.
2018, you could.
Councilperson Clur,
Here.
Councilperson Redmond,
What'd you say? You're real static.
Councilperson Redmond,
Okay, here.
Councilperson Collins.
I only have half a microphone, so I guess I'm half here.
Okay, and Councilperson Stearns.
Present.
And Mayor Stackpole.
Here. All right, so we are having this special meeting to consider adopting resolutions. Well, in this case, it's one resolution regarding the Public Financing Authority, and we're serving as a Public Financing Authority for this particular action because the council was the Public Financing Authority when this particular financial project started, actually way back in 2019. And we had two council members at the time that are still here, Mr. Collins and Mr. Redmond, and myself. Bond counsel at the time was talking to us, Todd, I'll let you go in a second, was talking to us in 2019, it was March or May of 2019, about how there's this process that is preferred for entering into relatively large bond issuance situations. And in the process of doing that, and this is the last step, you get somewhere between a 20 and 70 basis point discount on your interest rate when you go from something like CoBank, who we've been paying back for the wastewater treatment plant at a higher interest rate, and go to USDA. You get a much better rate, and that's what we're going to be working on right now. But it's even better if you go through the process that our bond counsel, who is Weiss law firm, I believe that's the people who introduced this back in 2019. So that was 5 years ago. Wow. And that went fast. So with that said, this is almost it's pretty much a formality, and it's something that needs to be done, has to be done, because we want the lower interest rate. So Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess since I wasn't here when this all happened, we have Cameron Weiss from the Weiss Law Firm on the line. We can have him walk through this unless, Muriel, you've got something you want to add to this since you've got institutional memory?
Yes, Mayor and Council. I think if Mr. Weiss wants to go over that for them, that would be probably a good thing to do. I don't know if it's really necessary. It really is just a formality at this point.
Yeah. Cameron, do you want to weigh in? You've got the floor.
Okay, happy to. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Well, good evening, and all of you are absolutely right. This happened, quite a while ago, and excuse me. The reason, as was stated, is there was a couple of different reasons, but primarily in California, unfortunately, under the government code or any of the other state code sections, there really is no bonding powers available to a municipality that wants to execute a more complex financing arrangement, which this qualifies for, as did the another transaction that the PFA handled for the solar project back a few years ago. So what you have to do is you have to enter into a third-party arrangement of some kind with a nonprofit or preferably a public financing authority that we, our firm set up for the city of Mount Shasta so that the city council could act as the board members for this public financing authority, and so it didn't have to farm out the political assignments to untrustworthy parties, and you could control it all in-house. So in essence, the legal arrangement has to be such that you are either leasing or purchasing something in exchange for dollars, and those dollars get assigned to investors that are partners, your financing partners in these arrangements. So that's how legally we have to do it in California. Is you have to set up, like I said, in this case, it's an installment sale arrangement, which is basically to yourself saying, look, Public Financing Authority, we're gonna buy from you this project, in this case, a wastewater treatment plant enhanced project, for whatever amount of money we agree upon, and we're gonna do that in exchange for paying the debt service on the obligations. Those dollars are assigned, like I said, to the lender. In the original case of this deal, it was bond anticipation notes that were sold to CoBank. They were short-term notes designed to just be that, short-term instruments that accomplish the financing. And there was another component part of this transaction, which was for the SRF portion of this. The project has now been complete, so the bond anticipation notes need to be defeased, which are the CoBank purchased notes, so that you can get out from under their arrangement, which as the city manager, and in this case, the executive director of the PFA just told the board, is that the CoBank loan is much higher now because it's a variable rate and the rates have gone up, and it's really important to get out from under those higher rates. Now you're able to exchange it with a long-term 40-year obligation that's going to be purchased by USDA at 2.125%. There are no prepayment penalties, and so this is a good thing. But again, the legal agreements are just that, the installment sale agreement, and then there is a trust agreement which handles some of the responsibilities of the parties, primarily, just the flow of funds. In this case, because the dollars from this arrangement with USDA are immediately going precisely to pay off the bond anticipation notes, there is no construction fund to handle. There's no reserves per se, other than a small reserve that USDA requires, no matter what the arrangement would be, for maintenance, annual maintenance obligations on the project. And that has already been agreed to in what's called a letter of conditions that USDA signed up the city when you agreed to take the grant funding and the loan funding originally way back when. So that hasn't changed. And then there's an assignment agreement, as I mentioned, which basically makes sure that the dollars get to USDA ultimately. So this is a fairly standard arrangement for more complex financings. It's really the best way to go. There are other ways to do this, but it's much more difficult and uncertain because city councils give up some of their autonomy and jurisdiction. So this is really the preferred way to do it. And as Muriel and Todd pointed out, this is really just sort of the final step in accomplishing all these matters. It is a legal necessity that we have all that's in this resolution before you, including Section 5, which are just good faith estimates, but really they are fairly precise because we know the rates and terms. We know the interest rate is 2.125. We know that the par amount is 9.209 million. And we know what that means in terms of the total interest cost. So really, that's a summary of what's before the board this evening. The City Council has already taken action on the flip side of this measure at a prior meeting. So again, this is just a way to make sure that everything is done precisely in accordance with law. And then we would just be in a waiting period for USDA's legal counsel to come back and approve the final approval. We already have USDA's approval to close this matter. We're waiting for their counsel. Once that happens, the transaction can take place. We expect it towards the end of this month. Worst case would be early August at this point. So that's a summary. If there's any questions, happy to answer.
Very good. Let's be very disciplined here. Do we have any clarifying questions to my right, to my left?
No questions.
Okay. Then we'll go to public comment. I believe this is not a hearing, public comment, and we have no one in the audience, and we no longer have hands up in a Zoom or internet context. Bring it back to council for further discussion, if any. Mr. Stearns?
I certainly intend to support this resolution. I would simply ask the date be changed from July 8th to July 22nd.
okay. And
on the last
where's that?
page, I think it is.
Is it in the resolution?
Yeah, in the resolution.
Yeah, whereas bonds will be voted, okay, so the last whereas on page 6?
Yes.
Yeah.
If
You want to
that-
make a move? Yeah. you wanna
If
move-
there's no other discussion, I would move that we adopt Resolution PFA 24-01, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Mount Shasta Public Financing Authority approving a trust agreement, installment sale agreement, assignment agreement, and certain other documents in connection with the authorization, preparation, sale, and delivery of the Mount Shasta Public Financing Authority Series 2024 wastewater revenue bonds and authorizing and directing certain actions with respect thereto,
Second.
As amended,
as amended.
and did you say 2401? Resolution?
24-01 is the
Perfect,
first one
all right.
this year.
So we have a motion, a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously. And with that done, we will adjourn, as there is no further business at 5:14. Thanks. 5:30, we will start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The city manager call the roll, please.
Councilperson Clerk.
Here.
Councilperson Redmond. Here. Mayor Stackcliffe.
Here.
Councilperson Collings.
Here.
Councilperson Stearns.
Here.
All right, moving right along. We do not have a special presentation tonight, so we'll move on to public comment. As we have no one in the audience, and we don't have the internet hands up Zoom service, we will move on to item number 5. Public comment is closed due to lack of interest. Council and staff comments. All right, I guess we'll start with the city manager as usual. Go ahead, Todd.
Sure. So you may recall from last year that we were awarded about $175,000 or so in Caltrans transportation, planning money. And we went out with an RFP process. This is for to get a firm to come in, assess Lake Street, and figure out what the types of active transportation improvements, traffic calming, ways to get people across the street, provide protected bike lanes, that kind of thing. And we have some good responses, and I'm going to be awarding this week to a firm to get working on this. The idea is that these active transportation improvements, we put off the reconstruction of Lake Street so we can get this design work done and then fold it in and seek another pot of grant funding for the construction of the active transportation to supplement what we have for the reconstruction of those streets. And part of this stemmed from the idea that we were having people, speeding at incredibly on Lake Street. We had a person that spoke in front of council about how fast people were driving on Lake Street, and our police department picked this person up doing 83 the next day. So it's a problem. Yeah, I mean, basically the lanes are too wide. Partially, and it's a big drag strip, and let's see what we can do to make it more friendly for all users. So that's in process. John, you're going to talk about the nest.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there is a coordinated letter writing campaign about the old hospital and what's going on there. And I've talked to a lot of folks and let them know that the hospital is not owned by the city. When it was taken over from the owner, it is in the hands of the Bay Area Receivership Group, who helped us take it out of the hands of a delinquent owner. As we all know, there was a suspicious fire that started that created asbestos being, diluted and sinking into the ground. So there's extensive environmental remediation that takes place. When people are calling me, I've been giving them the number of Ryan Griffith, who's the lead attorney that worked on taking this property over, and the head of the Bay Area Receivership Group. His number, and he's willing to take calls, is, again, Ryan Griffith, 510-564-8552. And some of the comments that I've received are, why doesn't the city purchase the property and then clean it up? And the answer is it's just too much money, too much of a hit on the budget, when really the fault lies with the original owner that didn't secure the site. So here's what's going on behind the scenes. The Bay Area Receivership Group has been working with the former owner's insurance company to wait on that payout, and we don't have the results of the arson investigation yet. So this is what Ryan Griffith is doing. 2 lawsuits that are working simultaneously. One is suing the original owner in Siskiyou County Court for $850,000 for contempt of court because he failed, as he was ordered by the judge on multiple occasions, that he needed to secure the site, or this arson, and therefore this arson would never have happened. $850,000 is enough to not only clean up the site, but to get it into a position where it can be bid to responsible developers up there. That's in process. The second lawsuit they've got going is they're suing the former property owner's insurance company because they're still taking payments for the policy and they haven't paid out on it, and it's been way too long. So they're suing the company to pay out sooner rather than later. I'm in contact with them on a regular basis and pressing them to do the right thing. In the meantime, we have money that we are awarded as part of a contempt citation against the original owner that we've had the site tarped twice with pretty, inconsequential materials. It's ripped. We were able to take the majority of that money that's left, and we've got a company that has come up and re-tarped the site with much stronger materials. And it is not a perfect fix, and we understand that, but the city's hands are tied for now, but it's not something the city has dropped. We're continuing to press Bay Area receivership groups and trying our best to work things through the courts. So that's where that stands. I don't know if I want to touch this. There was a celebration of the landing. It was an invite-only event paid for by the EPA, designed to celebrate a couple of things. One is the amount of time the city, how much time has passed since Roseburg donated this 127-acre parcel to the city, one. Two, our work with Siskiyou Economic Development Council and their work getting a brownfield grant through the EPA to help clean this site up, and the site is now deemed as clean as it's going to get. We have land use covenants that will apply, so those are 2 things. 3, we have an EPA grant that followed on brownfield, grant 1 of 56 that was awarded nationwide. They performed technical assistance to look at the site and see how we can package public infrastructure that includes green space, a mill pond, potentially other things I've talked to them about, including potentially a new fire hall that could be paid for. And if you are a recipient of one of these 56 grants, plus we're even more competitive because we are also working on a clean brownfield site that the EPA funded, it sets us up well to take this conceptual plan at 10 to 20% development and submit for an EPA climate resiliency grant, which the awards are between $10 and $20 million, and it will pay for all the infrastructure and building out all these park spaces. And if we were doing a public structure, it could potentially pay for, say, a new fire hall or a combined police and fire facility. So that's all going to be part of the mix. And frankly, the last thing is nothing's a done deal. Right now it's vaporware, but we've got a letter of intent to develop with a company called Pinsino Holdings. They're getting the money spigot open. Been working with them so they can get an engineering firm in and understand the lay of the land from studies that are out there, ranging from compaction to land use covenants, where we can build residential and where we can't, topography, other issues, areas that are unbuildable, especially at the north end of the site, which would make great park space and a mill pond. And they're working with us, and they're hoping to get an understanding of the lay of the land in terms of what they can develop and what they can't. And what I've been doing with working with them is reiterating the needs of the community, especially on affordable and on affordable housing as a big need. Some of the other needs that we've talked about, of course, that whatever commercial that may or may not be there doesn't compete with downtown. But I, again, reiterate with them, once they have this understanding of the lay of the land, if you want to be successful in this community, you need to go out early and often and make sure that the product is shaped in the way that the majority of the community wants to see this done. And they seem receptive to that. We'll see, the proof is in the pudding, but it was a well-attended event, and we move on from there. And that's all I've got.
Okay, do any of the staff members have comments? Muriel?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce Melissa Dodd, who is our new Finance Director for the City of Mount Shasta, and wish to welcome her, and I'm looking forward to working with her and giving her the reins very soon.
Well, welcome aboard, Melissa.
John, before we move on, I do have a question for City Manager.
Yep.
Todd, would it be possible to encourage or ask Ryan Griffith or someone with the organization to send a letter to adjacent property owners, say within 300 feet, or perhaps a larger letter that could be put on next door or on the city website?
Yes, can do.
All right, so, got it? Okay, so before we move on, I just wanted to review some things that are going on in the city, some of the things that either worry me, concern me, or confuse me. But start off with the 4 major projects that are either in the works or pending. We'll be discussing in further detail the landing project, and that's agenda item number 8, so I'll hold off on that. That project may lead to a mixed-use situation where the land is developed with respect to housing, commercial uses, and recreational uses. We shall see. This is the furthest anything's gone with respect to the landing, unless some of the people that have been around in the past can contradict that, but I think this is as far as anything's gone with the landing, as far as real possibilities.
Well, in the 2006-2008 timeframe, we had various proposals from developers for the east side of the landing, because that was the only part that the city was interested in selling at that point in time. We had some serious proposals. None of them came to fruition.
Okay. Well, hopefully this is different and actually does come to fruition, and so let's move forward. I was asking Todd about an update on the Danco project at the corner of Chestnut and Ivy, and he has told me that Danco's looking forward to starting, possibly breaking ground next spring. Is that holding up?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a project that's been long in the works. Todd just reviewed the situation with the hospital. That looks like it's going to take a lot longer time to resolve itself, so there won't be any housing going in there for a little while, assuming that's what would be put in there. Then there's the Nest, and I'm in contact with people who know Jacob Barr, and he seems very enthusiastic and well-financed, and will eventually complete that project, and it will eventually be open to the public to rent. I think they're all going to be rental spots.
The Nest?
The Nest, yeah. So that's good news. You actually have a developer with the wherewithal to actually complete a project in a relatively timely manner. So those are the projects inside the city. I wish I could say there's somebody or some interests, business interests looking to do something major outside of what I just mentioned. But unless Todd has some grand news, there was some hope that Amazon would experiment with a distribution center here, and that hasn't.
Yeah, we haven't, it's worth another call out. They seem to have cooled. They're like any city has a rumor mill, and if something was to happen here, one of the things I've seen floated is that it's going to be a center where we're going to be testing drone deliveries, and it's never been discussed. And but they seem to have cooled. Part of it is just readily available space and fixed restrooms, and the right kind of access. But I'll have Jeff Mitchum follow up with them tomorrow.
Well, it seems to me it's a good lead-in that we have a ready-made facility for warehousing at the old water bottling plant.
Yep.
And One Shasta is in discussion with Todd regarding water rights and the well, but outside of renting the outside parking lot at the water bottling plant to the construction crews that are fixing poles in the area, is there anything really going on with them with respect to investing in the property?
They have several leads, but none of them have been shared with me. They don't seem to be in a particular hurry.
No. Have you heard something, Tim?
No, but if I may, I think the city would be wise to get the annexation of that property started before they have tenants for the former water bottling plant. Otherwise, we are likely to be paying a much higher percentage to the county.
Yeah, that's correct. Part of the negotiations is holding over, strong support for annexation, along with the $200,000 to $250,000 to upsize that tank to serve their facility. I've gotten estimates back that if we end up having to go, they're playing hardball in some ways, but if we needed to pull water from the Spring Hill well that we own at the Baptist Church, we'd have to dig a new well because the well that's there is a little cloudy. And for us to dig that well and pull that water, pump it up to the site we need, which is owned by One Shasta, we're looking at $3.2 to $3.7 million. And so John Kenny, myself, the attorney for One Shasta, and the two owners are meeting on Wednesday to see if we can finally hammer out a deal. And it might involve potentially a wide distribution system where they keep untreated water and we treat the rest. And it's not the ideal solution, but it may be the only way to move forward to at least get us a more balanced system and more water to buy us time for when we may need to pull the water from the Spring Hill site up here, because right now I don't have any clue how we would pay for this if this is the track we need to take, so we may need to compromise.
All right, so thanks, Todd. We shall see how that all goes, but hopefully it moves with a little bit more speed than other projects. So after Ken Kellogg, our Public Works Director, came in and talked about the wastewater treatment plant, I got into a further discussion with him. And basically, as briefly as possible, he admitted that the wastewater treatment plant is posing some difficulties for staff with respect to getting up to code with respect to the quality of the wastewater coming out. Now, it's not a concern until the water has to be released into the river, and that won't be an issue until late October or November when we stop sending water to the Mount Shasta Resort's golf course. They rely on our gray water to irrigate their golf course, and all our wastewater goes there now. So there's no chance of fines. So what is the problem? It's the heavy metal removal. And zinc and copper and possibly other heavy metals, but it's heavy metals. And it goes back, I remember somebody, when I was back in New York, somebody came in from wastewater. I was in school, I think it was 7th grade. Guy came in, okay, we can get 90% of this stuff out of there pretty easily, pretty cheaply. But that last 10%, which involved, I think, heavy metals, I'm not positive, but I'm sure that's what it was, very expensive. This is back in the 70s. Yep. It sounds like things haven't changed that much. When you go after the heavy metals, you have to have systems, and I started doing research on this. There's about 7 different methodologies or systems to remove heavy metals. Which one we have, I don't know yet. But apparently we haven't mastered the techniques to remove all the metals yet, and hopefully we will, so there'll be no fines. Because I don't know about you guys, but if we're dropping $25 million on a project that's supposed to be state-of-the-art, it should work.
Yeah.
And it should work easily. So hopefully this gets debugged. Ken seemed pretty confident that it will, and we'll be avoiding those fines. You also mentioned that there's a warranty regarding faulty construction or faulty design or faulty design. So we'll have recourse to get help in remediating the situation if we need to make additional changes physically to the plant, I would assume. In other words, spend more money.
So I spoke to Ken and to Brooke, and for lack of getting into a more detailed description, there's a binder that they use that basically binds with the heavy metals and sinks it out. And so what Brooke is doing, and she's very confident she's going to get there. They're making strides all the time, but what they're doing is titrating this binding material so they're not overusing it to the point where it's doing exactly what it needs to do, and it's improving, a couple times a week, and she feels confident it's a matter of tying it in. But the mayor's point is apt, that if we get to a point and we get baffled by this no longer working and we still have issues, we will be going to PACE in terms of making sure they follow through on their warranty.
And the other concern, which I really didn't develop with the Public Works Director, is the plant truly scalable? Meaning that if we do have growth and we do have more effluent going in the system and we have to increase the capacity of the plant, that is easy to do. Yes. And because then we'll have a ratio tied in when we finally figure out the titration level. You just scale that titration up to the percentage. But you're confident that if we have more effluent going there, because we do actually grow, let's say we go from 3,200 people to nearly 4,000 in the next 5 years. Yep. We'll be able to handle it. Okay. All right, that's good to know. Since we have the city attorney here, we did a deal with Riverwatch or something back in 2020. You may remember that, John, because it was.
I certainly do.
And I signed a check the other day, which I think might have been the final payment to them. And the compromise was, okay, we settle for $75,000, but also the city has to remediate the collection system. We're not talking about the interceptor line out there that's been rebuilt, or the wastewater treatment plant that's been rebuilt, but we'd actually go out and survey our whole collection system and determine where the leaks are, where the problems are, and fix them. I haven't seen that company. It's called National Plant Services since the year after that deal was made. And I'm just concerned, this is one of my concerns, that we're not following through. And that is a Public Works task, and I hope everyone's following up and adhering to the agreement that was made, which is that we'll discover what our problems are and then fix them systematically. And I just don't want to take a chance with that group coming back and saying, well,
Yeah, we agreed to specific things. Many of them were underway or were done early, so I don't know what the status is now. But, you know, Department of Public Works should take a look at it and see where they are.
That's a concern where we made a deal, and I'm just imploring staff to follow through and make sure they're following through. I think it was a very good compromise, actually, all things considered. So, yeah. And then good to have city attorney here for this next concern. So I was looking at the code on the library, and it's pretty straightforward. The tax money can be used to maintain, operate, and improve the library. My concern is if you improve the library and actually build square footage for not necessarily library-oriented activities, do we need to go to the people to reconfirm that they're okay with that tax money maybe not being strictly for library purposes? Or do we just change the code saying that the money can be used to improve the library, and some of those improvements may lead to activities that aren't strictly library oriented? Since you're here, John,
Well,
what are your thoughts?
We can't change the code because the code was adopted by the electorate. And I don't remember the terms of it.
It's very simple.
But it was pretty clear that the money would be spent for general library purposes. I don't know that it left anything out. I think it was pretty broad, but it requires the city's approval, of course. You get the advice from the library committee, but the city has to approve it.
Yeah, if I may, it was for library purposes. The plan had been for at least 2 decades or more to build public use space into the library, public meeting space into the library. So whether it could be for city council meetings, planning commission meetings, or community organization meetings. So I think that falls within the library purpose.
You know, first of all, does anybody know for sure what a library is anymore? Seriously. So yeah, I think that
it is.
I think it would be broadly interpreted.
Yeah.
So, and that's not an uncommon use of the library.
Yeah.
Okay, so I should stand down and not worry about this until someone sues us to get rid of the tax. Okay, yeah. Which around here is a distinct possibility. All right, moving on. Yeah, let's move on to the consent agenda. Number 7, city manager recommends approval of the following consent agenda items. All resolutions and ordinances on this agenda or added hereto shall be introduced or adopted as applicable by title only, and the full reading thereof is hereby waived. A, approval of minutes, July 8th, 2024, special and regular meetings. Everyone was here for those. Okay, good. B, approval of disbursements, accounts payable July 1st, July 10th, July 11th, July 16th, 2024, total gross payroll and taxes for period ending July 7th, 2024. C, monthly investment and revenue report. D, approval of a resolution approving an application for funding and execution of a grant agreement and any amendments thereto from the 2023 and/or 2024 funding year of the state CDBG program. This is resolution CCR-24-22. Someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through D, including CCR-24-22 by title only.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes unanimously. Now we get to 2 very interesting agenda items. We'll start with number 8. This is about the landing, and a recommended approval of a highest and best use study and a commercial appraisal. So, city manager has the floor.
So part of the letter of intent lays out one of the city's obligation is to perform a commercial appraisal on the property that is MAI certified. Those commercial appraisers are few and far between. I talked to, in agreement with the developers, talked to a couple firms. One, two were very close. There is a company called Shasta, Dunlap, and Sawyer to undertake an appraisal. You need to perform a highest and best use study based on the current zoning of that property to show what it's worth and net present value of the potential for development on that site. And then you can perform the appraisal. And two companies that I spoke to said that they would do a highest and best use study for between $15,000 and $20,000, with the actual MIA appraisal being between $10,000 and $15,000. And then, I should say, the wait time for both of these companies was 8 months, because they're just tied up because there's so few MIA appraisers around. Many of you know Ryan Valuations out of Reading. Chuck Ryan is recently retired. He's up here. He has helped us with the Brownell site. He has agreed to, if we hire him, turn the highest and best use study combined with the MIA appraisal, commercial appraisal, out within 60 days for a total price of between $8,000 and $12,000. And it's a lot of money. I mean, you can't deny that, but that's bargain basement.
So are you asking the council to simply give you authorization to move forward with the lowest and best offer, a reasonable offer? Or do we need a resolution specifically, or a motion specifically directing staff to move forward with one of these two?
My recommendation is to have council support hiring Ryan Valuations to do both the highest and best use study and the MIA appraisal. We're going to get it done the fastest, which is going to, basically, it's going to allow a greater likelihood that the developers succeed in meeting their obligations during that first year. And it's also, again, it's expensive, but it's an extremely reasonable proposal. And I'd like to just be able to get them rolling as soon as we can, because as soon as we get that all back, the better off we're going to be in terms of knowing the lay of the land and what the financing is like for Pinsino Holdings. And we're going to need this. I mean, say Pinsino Holdings falls through and we end up going with another developer like K2, or who knows who else shows up on the scene. This is current information that can be used for whoever shows up, and it's ready and it's able to be pulled off the shelf. And even if it's a year or two from now, you just apply an escalator, and it's still a valid piece of work.
Okay. Clarifying questions. Yeah, go ahead.
City Manager, you've had some experience with Chuck with the two parking lot parcels across from the Ace parking lot when he was doing valuation with that.
Yep.
I'm assuming you like his service levels?
Oh, the turnaround time is no one's getting that turnaround time, and part of it is just that he's retired and he's only doing the jobs that he wants to do.
Right.
And he's got family members that have taken over the main business in Reading, and he does what he wants. It's just easy for him because it's up in Mount Shasta. And I don't want to speak for him, but he seems to have in interest in performing work that benefits, what he sees that benefits the community, so community-based projects.
Thank you.
Clarifying questions over here? Okay. So this isn't really a question. I'm just going to say that this wasn't budgeted for, so this would be an adjustment to the current fiscal year's expense numbers. Okay, so, and that's going to range somewhere between 15 and almost 30.
8 to 12 for both, to complete both.
Go down one more paragraph.
The other firm, Shara, Dunlop and Sawyer, was 10 to 15,000 just for the highest and best use, and potentially 15,000 for the MIA appraisal.
Oh, I see. So you actually priced it out, right?
Yep.
Okay. No, actually, that doesn't seem very expensive to me at all, to be frank. But we'll go to public comment on this right now. We do have a couple people in the audience. Wendy? No? Person next to Wendy? No? Okay. So public comment is closed. And we move on to further discussion. And since this really isn't set up as a resolution, City Manager, you're looking for support in pursuing this?
Yes.
Direction?
I would move that City Council authorize city staff to move forward with a contract with Ryan Valuations as set forth.
The $8,000 to $12,000
In the $8,000 to $12,000 range, yes.
Second.
All right. And all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And aye. Any opposed? There you have it, City Manager. Move forward. Now we get to the biggie. Number 9. Approval of, subject approval of 1% sales tax measure to be dedicated to public safety. And City Manager will introduce this.
Sure. In recent history, we've talked about putting, well, you know, first things first, we've had a drainage impact fee that we had. It's a very convoluted process, and one that I'm not, and it just seems like it's set up to fail, is where we've got, and again, I haven't fully confirmed this, but I was told internally that the $1 drainage impact fee paid per month was adopted in the 60s. And it has not increased since then, and it was a bridge too far for many folks moving towards a significantly, when we're talking about significantly higher from $1 a month. Some people took umbrage to that, and so we were looking at, well, if we were going to adopt a new drainage impact fee, then maybe we need to do this more modestly, where we're just taking care of maintenance and operations. In speaking with John, our city attorney, for us to make the November ballot for that kind of fee, we've got the 45-day notice of, the ability to protest this, and if the number of votes come back and that we're like, well, let's hear this out, we're in support of this, then there's more noticing. And given that our ability to get it on the November ballot, it requires this all to be wrapped up, we just don't have the time to do it. So then enter the other discussion that we've had of a 1% sales tax increase that would require a 2/3 vote, and it would be dedicated to public safety, fire, police, code enforcement, and there's some nuance to this, but that's something we can, if we hustle, we can get on that agenda. And what I would add is, I think it's a blessing in disguise that we can't get the drainage impact fee on at the same time as the dedicated 1% sales tax increase, because I think floating the two measures at once may negate both. So that's it. I mean, we can make this to the ballot. We just need to figure out who's going to write the arguments. We've got some ideas, and Kathy has those, but she's injured her back, so I don't know the names. But it can work, and John is here because he knows the ins and outs of this type of measure, and so if you've got real specific questions, he's the guy to ask.
All right, so clarifying questions. Mr. Stearns?
Yeah, are you saying that our action that we took at the recent city council meeting cannot be put on the ballot in November?
A smaller drainage impact fee can't make it to the November ballot, but a 1% cannot. But a 1% dedicated sales tax increase can.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And to make the sales tax, we were told, and it's a special tax, and it's for fire and police protection. Somebody wants to change.
Understand, but I was concerned about putting two ballot tax measures on the ballot, which I thought would
Makes
require
saying
both
no
to go
twice
down.
very easy. I say that makes saying no twice very easy.
Right.
Clarifying questions? This side? All right, it is time. I don't have any questions either. Public comment from our two spectators. Shaking their heads, no, they are good. So we come back to the city council. This is pretty straightforward. 2/3 vote, and hopefully some entities will promote this. We as the city council cannot do much, if anything, with respect to marking.
To the chair.
Yeah, your thoughts?
I do have a question about that while we have Mr. Kenny here.
Okay.
Is there anything that we can do within the council to promote this?
Yes, yes. But here, yes, you can promote it, but information only. You can't be, if someone wants information, you can give them information, what money it'll raise, things like that. But you cannot promote a ballot argument. You got to be very careful with that. If somebody wants to support this, then a group of people should support it, and they're not subject to those limitations.
Jeffrey first.
But informationally, and by the way, there's another thing too, that if this goes on the ballot, the city council has to authorize who's going to write the yes on measure so-and-so, whatever it is, the ballot argument. And I think that has to be done by August 12th, and some careful thought should be given to that, who the city council wants to do that, because frequently when people read the ballot, the first thing looked at is who's supporting this and who isn't. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the local politics, but you people do.
Is Hulk Hogan available?
Pardon?
No.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, I can say this is what it is, but I can't say you should do this.
Yeah, well, you cannot spend public money to support a ballot measure. Now, when are you spending public money to support a ballot measure? Well, certainly if you run an ad in a newspaper, put something on television, you're supporting the ballot measure. If you're providing general information to the voter, the argument is you're not supporting it, you're just providing general information.
Education.
Yeah. So be careful with that, of course.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Just one more. So to be clear, you can't tell them to vote yes, but you can just tell them why they should?
you can't tell them how to vote, but you can tell them what their vote might mean.
Gotcha. Okay, just making clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can probably, when you hand them the information, say, I can't go into great detail, but there's a thing in your hand, let's call it X, and it might be a good idea to support.
Just as an aside, there's two taxes that are raised by the city that aren't all paid by city residents. The transit occupancy tax and the sales tax. So a lot of the sales tax money, it goes to city purposes, but it's raised by people from, paying who are outside the city, purchasing and doing things inside the city.
Yeah, and that's pretty provable by looking at the different level of tax receipts in different months, and assume that something like November or January, February are domestic, municipal citizens generating sales taxes, and then in the summer when it goes up tremendously, it's visitors. So, Mr. Collins, question?
A finance director, is it a reasonable estimate with a 1% sales tax increase that this would generate somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.6 million every year?
To answer your question, plus or minus, say, $20,000, I would say it's right on.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure I understood the magnitude of how much money was coming in, but thank you.
And I think that's based on what the 0.25% library tax is presently raising. So it should be a sound, things change, but that's based on evidence.
Mr. Stearns?
Do we have current estimates on the cost of a new fire station? Ballpark.
We don't.
I think that would be helpful. In fact, I think that would be critically helpful if we decide to put this on the ballot.
Yeah, so that leads to a discussion about the presentation of the ballot, the innards of the ballot, the language, and so forth. What percentage of the proceeds would go to capital projects like a new fire station and/or police station? Maybe it'd be a combo. And what would go to operations? So that's something that this all has to be clarified by August 10th, 12th, 9th, something
and
like
we're
that.
going to have to, especially if we plan to include as part of the EPA grant application for a public facility, we need a pretty strong ballpark estimate to see if it fits with under that $10 to $20 million cap as part of the climate resiliency grant.
Yeah, so I've heard that fire stations, you can buy like this package. It's easy to manage, it's easy to build, easy to construct. Makes it a little cheaper from what I understand. The more custom your fire station is, the much more expensive it will be. So
or combination, it could be a public safety facility.
Yeah, well, that's down the line, but I guess to me the issue here is what percentage of the proceeds will go to capital investment.
I don't think we have to set that forth.
I'd be very careful about allocating revenue. But you certainly could, the city certainly could produce a fact sheet on the critical fire protection needs and policing needs. You don't promise anything, but you can't because you can't.
So then just list what the operational costs are of running the safety departments,
sure. I mean,
and which is about $3 million.
I mean,
and that's quite clear. And then potential investments in structures, what those numbers could be. So in other words, this money doesn't cover, this tax will not cover all of the safety department related costs, but it helps. And that's the point of this.
Mayor, through the chair?
Yep.
You could, and a fact sheet could state what you're presently paying, okay? And that's all general fund money, I think. I don't think you have any, that's usually what happens. General fund money, what the critical needs of the police and fire is, and some representation of what's the cost of maintaining a police officer annually. You're not promising anything, that's just information that the public should have. But, the public will look at your budget on what $40 million budget. So, oh, surely they can find $5 million somewhere. The only area where you have any discretion is the general fund. And that's almost all, I bet, almost all eaten up with fire and police protection.
You mentioned, Todd, EPA possible funding. If a proposition were put on the ballot and were to pass, would that adversely affect the city's opportunity or competitiveness?
I don't know. I think not. And in fact, in many of your grants and loans, the agency the granting agency wants to make sure you're paying your fair share.
Yep. And
so
they'll view
if
it
you have you have a complete your sewer project, first thing you have to do is raise your sewer rates to show that you're paying your fair share. So I think that a funding mechanism like that would just show responsibility on behalf of the city. And they're not, they're doing their fair share, and the people that do their fair share should be entitled to a grant and a loan before somebody else.
I don't want to overstate this, but because you never know who is going to be ranking these applications as they come in. SEDC is really good at putting these kind of applications together. What we have going for us is we have a clean brownfield site that used EPA money, and we have this technical assistance grant, again, EPA money, and the team that was assembled by the EPA, our first meeting is, they're assembling applications for some of the other locations that are seeking the same grant. And they said, of all the people that we've met with, you were further along and have thought this through to a more complete degree than anyone that we've worked with. So we have two things going for us: the clean brownfield, EPA following on this technical assistance grant, and the fact that we've got something that's, it will, by the time this grant is awarded, and you need to be shovel ready within a short-ish time frame. I think a lot of communities are going to have a hard time meeting that bar, and I think we're going to be able to meet that. So I think we're highly competitive.
It's well recognized that a shovel-ready project is more attractive to any granting agency because they want to put their sign up, funded by Newsom on the something or other, sooner the better. So sometimes, shovel-ready projects maybe aren't the most worthy, but the most promptly eligible.
But it's something you can point to.
Yeah.
To the chair.
And it's a real project, and you become shovel-ready by going through the design phase or any environmental phase, so you know more about your project than somebody else is making a claim.
Council President Glore.
So I'm hearing that it would probably behoove us to vote in the 1% if that's what we vote in now, and then get the letters of intent for each side, plus any policy particulars that we want to enable, like a capital set-aside can be done way later. It doesn't have to be done within, but we need a fact sheet that goes along with the ballot. Okay.
The chair. What do we intend to do with this money? $1.6 million a year is a lot of dough. What are we planning on doing with it? I honestly don't understand.
I can answer that.
Please.
So essentially, it will cover a big majority of the public safety costs right away. So
what are those?
Salaries.
60% of our general fund covers public safety personnel expenses.
So it's
Right,
over
but-
$3 million.
Yeah.
But they're currently being covered by our current
Yes.
revenue.
Well, sort of, because we're running a deficit.
Right, but this coming year, we're virtually at break even. And I mean, we're off by 50 grand or 60 grand on a $6 million general fund budget. Is that roughly right? And in other words, we're roughly at break even. And
Can I keep going? Can I keep going?
but no, please. I'm trying to go back because it just doesn't make sense to me yet. So just yes, please.
So then we can also set aside a reserve for future building purposes for public safety, police, and fire. But what makes me most excited is that that opens up $1.6 million of the general fund that is already spoken for, that will now be at our disposal to cover the PERS obligation, to cover increase of staff salary as it comes up. We won't be so rigid with our budget, and it'll allow us to grow exponentially, in my opinion, for economic development and as things come up as we need them. And it has its way of marketing itself, so the Fire Commission can market it and pass it as a public safety designation, where we're not just asking for more general fund money to spend at our disposal. So to me, it's completely brilliant.
Is there any sunset on this? I mean, is this kind of ongoing, or is there like?
The way the resolution is drafted is
To a certain extent, it provides insurance for police and fire protection, and who knows what the future holds. But if you back up and take, for example, the library. Remember the library? The library was a county function, but it was a drain on the general fund. The county stopped it.
Right.
So the city had to pick it up, and then the city had to raise a special tax to keep it going. So hard times come, what gets hit is the general fund. So there's assurance that there's a certain amount of money available for the general fund and can't be cut as other discretionary funds can be.
I also forgot to mention streets and roads are a big part of that. So if the drainage impact fee never goes up, then we have the reserves to cover whatever happens with our drainage and normal streets and roads, public works.
In other words, there'd be more funds available for public works.
One more question, if I may, to the finance director. Do you have any rough idea what the percentage splits are between citizens of Mount Shasta who pay sales taxes versus how much are paid by out-of-town guests, tourists?
Just as Mayor Stackfleth had earlier stated, and I think it's a pretty good analogy, is that when there aren't people here during the winter, late fall, winter, early spring, those are our 2 quarters that are the lowest for sales tax and TOT. In the summer months, the summer and early fall, basically from April through through September, that's when we get the most money, and that's particularly in TOT, and that follows for sales tax as well. So you can easily draw the conclusion, at least in my opinion, that the tourist industry in the summertime is leading the way for not only TOT but for sales tax as well.
I understand seasonality. I'm looking for an annualized number. Is 30% of our revenue coming from tourists as far as sales tax proceeds? Is it 20% or 45% annualized? Do you have any idea what that number is?
Haven't done that calculation. I have not done that calculation.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that perhaps the Economic Development Council may have are some of those sorts of statistics. I know that they keep those sorts of statistics, and they may be more able to answer that question, not only for sales tax, but for other types of things as well.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how much of this hits tourists versus how much hits people who live here year-round. And we've been digging into their pockets. I'm just trying to get an idea how much affects them versus tourists. That's all. But thank you.
All right. Sounds like the discussion has ended. Would anyone like to make a motion? This is on more discussion. Go ahead, Tim.
actually further discussion.
Go ahead.
The current proposed measure has no sunset date. We found in the past that without a sunset date, fewer people were interested in voting for this. Should we consider putting a sunset date or a potential sunset date? And I'll direct that question not only to Finance Director, staff, council members, and also to our city attorney.
I would advise against putting a sunset date in it. If the people are going to raise the tax, they should do so. They should understand that that tax stays in place. Well, they could always repeal it, but I would not put a sunset date on it. People could repeal it anytime they wanted to.
Through initiative process, right. Let's not forget, we're a direct democracy state. If you don't like what's going on, go out, get the signatures, and change things. It happens all the time. Yeah, so further discussion? No. All right, so it's page 71. If anyone would like to make a motion reading the actual resolution.
I will do my best.
Okay, and it's going to be 23.
Right. I make a motion to approve Resolution CCR-24-23, resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta requesting the election clerk of the County of Siskiyou to place on the November 5, 2024 ballot a measure to adopt a sales tax and transaction tax as a special tax requiring a 2/3 vote. Whereas the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta desires to place on the November 5, 2024 ballot a ballot measure to authorize the imposition of a 1% sales tax. And whereas the ballot measure Exhibit A attached is a special tax with revenues to be used for police and fire protection and requiring a 2/3 vote for adoption. And now, therefore, that's it. Right? Yeah.
Second.
Roll call vote. Roll call, if you could.
So I understand the motion. The resolution as stated is for a 1%
Is for 1%, correct?
increase.
1% sales tax, yes.
Okay, Councilperson Clure,
Yes.
Councilperson Redmond,
Yes.
Mayor Stackworth,
Yes.
Councilperson Collings,
No.
Councilperson Stearns.
Yes.
All right, well, that concludes our serious agenda items. I don't have any reports on outside meetings. Do council members to my left? Well, I did go to the Lola meeting. I made an introduction at the EPA, Siskiyou Economic Development Council celebration, and then I went to the Lola meeting. The Lola meeting was the usual guest speakers with then the city's city representatives mentioning the goings-on in their city. So I did mention what was going on in their city, and it was a good meeting at the Wheelhouse, and the food was good, pasta, meatballs, and spaghetti. The Lola meetings are fairly predictable, and so there is a report. I did meet at length with the city planner for Wairika. That would be our former city planner, Juliana Lucchese. They have got a lot going on in Wairika, too much to mention, but they have housing projects, road projects, some industrial projects. Pfeiffer Vacuum is building a new building, but it's an expansion. Fairchild Medical Center has got an expansion going on. So anyhow, picked up some good information about the place in which I work up there in Wairika. But yeah, so that's that. I didn't stay for the meeting, the Siskiyou Economic Development Council meeting, so I really can't speak to what was going on there. I can say that it seems that the group that's been hired by the EPA to come up with concepts for developing the landing with respect to lands not useful for residential areas is very much geared towards park and recreation. I didn't see anything that was really geared towards light industrial, commercial space at all in any of their posters. So fields, ball fields, tennis courts, pickleball courts, an amphitheater, and then lots of green spaces, greenways. So that's my report about that meeting. I just think that as far as, I mean, it seems like there's a bit of a rush to get something decided with respect to that grant money. And I was also under the impression that we had already been awarded a $10 to $20 million grant, but it's not conclusive.
No, and you know, the reason the focus on public facilities and parks is that's you know, the only thing that the EPA technical assistance, not technical assistance, the climate resiliency infrastructure grant can pay for, and that's the focus. And you remember that Tom Hesselden's circulated a map with proposed park space and circulation, and I thought it was very thoughtful in terms of leaving plenty of space for development and taking into account the areas that really aren't particularly developable, but can be, you know, tremendous amenities for the community. And the developers, I think, are going to be extremely receptive, especially if they don't have to pay for it.
For all the the green space development, right? Anyhow, in that particular concept drawing by Mr. Hesselden's, he leaves 84 acres of the 127 plus, because he also includes, it looks like, the orchard acreage in there. So it's 127 plus acres, but of the total acreage, he leaves 84 acres for development. So I thought it was a really good compromise with those that are concerned about overdevelopment and lack of green space. I think he did a really good job developing a conceptual plan there. Yeah.
I think that we may have left agenda item number 9 a bit quickly, because I think that we may have left agenda item number 9 a little too quickly, because we have not indicated as a council who is to write the statement in favor of the proposition, which I consider to be part of agenda number 9. So I would like us to go back to that and finish agenda number 9 in terms of designating the proponents.
Did you have someone in mind, City Manager?
You could do that. You could do that at a different time. It's not necessary at this time, but you want to get the designations of people in to meet the clerk's deadline.
Well, if the deadline is August 12th, we need to do it now rather than later.
Well, it's not on the agenda for today, so.
I consider it to be part of agenda number 9 of the tax proposition.
Well, it's not really clearly stated, Tim, so that's
Do we have a meeting before, or we can hold a special meeting for this too?
Well,
the City Manager have someone in mind to
Yeah,
write?
but I mean, it's a sensitive issue, so some thought should go into who does that. I mean, it can be council members. It doesn't have to be. It could be a council member and someone else, but
so
it has to appeal to the voters, and I don't know who that is. So.
Well, the plan was for Kathy to be here tonight. It involves a police and fire association, and there are 2 names that I just don't recognize of people that they know everybody in the community, they're well respected, and they're articulate, and there's kind of a unanimous poll from police and fire personnel that these two individuals, that I don't have the name, would make the most sense. And if we need to have a quick special meeting next week to name these two people, that could work.
And hopefully, it's people that will generate a committee or something to promote the ballot measure.
Just
Have a program.
Was one of them Cervelli?
Is what?
One of them Cervelli? Does that ring a bell?
That sounds extremely familiar. Yeah. Thank you.
So, does anybody have any other reports from meetings? No, because there really weren't that many. Okay, so moving on to future agenda items, do we want to place a future agenda item for next week to approve? Would we just be approving the author of the yes on measure PDFD, or would we actually be approving the actual language?
I
No,
think
you won't be. You will not be approving the actual language. The idea is to get the people on board, and I'll prepare the resolution. You people can fill in the names.
Okay. So, Todd, suggestions on timing on that? Is Monday too soon? Wednesday next week? What? We have a meeting on Wednesday next week, maybe with respect to the library, I think. No, that's in August. Okay.
Next Monday?
And I'll be out of town, so I'll follow whatever you all think is right.
Well, it sounds like there's some momentum with respect to promoting this from those who are the best
let's
choices.
shoot for next Monday.
Okay, and it'd be at City Hall,
Yeah.
4:30. What do you think?
Noon? How long is this going to take?
What whatever works collectively for.
Yeah, I can't get, the earliest I can get there is 4:30.
Okay.
4:30 works for you?
Yeah, I can pull it off.
I
Yep.
can do that, I think. Let's see. Yes. What day? Next Monday, the 29th.
Okay, does anybody have a future agenda items of import or not so important? On to my left. Still have a pretty long list. Over here. Okay. So I'm not quite sure this is a future agenda item, but after the demise of the stormwater rate 218 process, the momentum with respect to daylighting creeks, restoring creeks, the stormwater drainage system in general is pretty well died down. However, Tom Hesseldins has some really clear ideas with respect to creek restoration and stormwater mitigation, and he repeatedly says he thinks there are grants available from the feds, EPA, to help in that process, and he has designs that are pretty well thought out. Along those lines, he has found me on the street, right there on Main Street, and he's gone over in detail what appears to be his well thought out ways of developing the couplet that we've talked about, the one-way couplet, and incorporating bike lanes and parking changes.
Yep.
The monies for that would be Caltrans grants and so forth, and of course we have to show that we are decreasing parking. But along those lines, but not too much, and so, Todd, it's not really an agenda item, but it is an effort on my part to re-enliven the ad hoc committee with respect to especially the couplet and and Tom's general plan for improving trails and so forth in the city. Can we schedule a meeting at everyone's convenience in that committee sometime in August to try and regenerate this effort and get to a point where we have a concept, a plan that most likely developed by Tom Hesselden's, and that then we move forward to end the committee at that point and move forward to actually put out an RFP for the detailed designs of that, and or start working on getting grants, because that committee is pretty well stalled, whereas the library committee is moving forward. So not really an agenda item, I'm just saying that we should.
So, I mean, I've got some updates on that. Tom and I had about an hour conversation about it. One of the things we are waiting on, and we don't necessarily have to wait on this, is we now have a firm date for an engineering company to come in to the 2 Brownell parcels that are currently being used for parking, that we'd like to look at for parking as well, for drilling and sampling groundwater to see if there's any leaching, contamination, and get a baseline level to ensure that if there isn't anything leaking now when we purchase this, if we were to purchase these 2 parking lots, that somebody can't come back and say, hey, you know, a few blocks away, this this pollution is coming from leaching of hydrocarbons or whatever else from these 2 parking lots. So I've been waiting on that to come back to see whether this is a viable option to purchase the 2 parking lots, one, and also to come up with a proposed price I can go back to Alan Brownell on in case we want to figure out a way to purchase those 2 parking lots. But you know, we don't have to wait until that time. We can start talking about, well, how do we zig or zag if we decide it is too much of a risk to pick up the 2 parking lots, you know, and frankly, well, what do we do now in terms of grants to, you know, get this ball in motion? Because I think we can solve the parking issue even if we don't pick up the Brownell properties.
Well, really, so Tom seems to think that's pretty key, that we get at least the Brownell parcels, and it would be even better if we purchased or had use of the parcel on the northwest corner of Alma and
potentially
Boulevard. Yeah,
yep.
I mean, no, he's expressed to me that these are key to doing a lot of what we're talking about here, because one of the main concerns is always parking, losing parking. So he thinks he can work around not having those parking those parcels for parking.
Tom's a pretty creative guy.
Okay. So what's your feeling on making it a future agenda item for the parking? You have one down there for the one on the boulevard by the railroad tracks. It's to be determined.
It's on that list. I just need to do the reaching out. I've been there's no reason that I needed to wait to find out what's going on with Brownell, but I figured if we could figure out a way. Again, this is all dependent upon a write-down on the assessed value of that property minus any environmental contamination, because we're limited to its use to what it's been used for in the past. So normally a value of a property is based on the current zoning of a property and its highest and best use, and clearly we can't use it for other things if we want to be consistent with CEQA. And we do know that there are hydrocarbons contaminating the 2 parking lots, which is pretty normal for a parking lot, and we want to turn around and use it for that use. It's still, there should be a deduction in the appraised value because you can only use it for this one thing.
Okay, so that'll be a future agenda item when this clears up after the testing.
Yeah.
And you have further negotiations with Brownell, which, you know, we just don't want taco trucks there, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's the rumor. fleet of taco trucks. Yeah. Anyhow, unless there's any reason to not stop, we are concluded at 6:50.